was the philosophy of the teachings of Islam.
You start, or you have to finish this? Please continue.
One of these books was the philosophy of the teachings of Islam, copies of which are widely available in over 60 languages. The distinctive feature of Ahmadiyyat, the true Islam, is the rationality of its teachings. Our beliefs are far removed from any kind of legend, myth, or superstition. The promised Messiah threw a challenge to the world to try and find fault with any teaching of Islam, assuring them that he could prove that every single precept was based on the facts of unchangeable human nature and rationality. This question and answer session gives you the opportunity to put our beliefs and teachings to the test of logic and rationality. The fourth Khalifa or successor to the promised Messiah is the present head of the movement, Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad, who was elected to office in 1982. He was born in Qadian, India in 1928 and was educated in India, Pakistan and the United Kingdom. He has a deep understanding of religion and has written many books in Urdu and some in English. His recent English book, Revelation, Rationality, Knowledge and Truth, is an epic publication which answers many questions troubling people today. His dynamic leadership has carried the community forward in leaps and bounds. He has launched several social projects to help poor countries in Africa, and under his personal supervision and guidance, the movement has translated the Holy Quran in more than 50 major languages of the world. Today, we see an ironic spectacle of the highest progress in science and technology on the one side and the rapid deterioration of moral and spiritual values on the other. This rift is widening daily, particularly in the West, and if it is not drastically narrowed and eliminated, it would bring about a universal disaster which might well end civilization as we know it. Belief in the possibility of communion with God, which is the very essence of spiritual life, has all but disappeared. Today, it is the Ahmadiyya movement in Islam which furnishes practical illustration of the truth of its claims. It is only through the experience of such a living relationship with God, where God actually speaks to his creatures, that a person can arrive at absolute certainty of faith in the divine, which can work the needed moral and spiritual revolution in the life of man. This is the challenge that the Ahmadiyya movement in Islam presents to the world. It is the challenge of a resurgent and invigorated Islam. Thank you.
All the formalities have been completed. Now enter straight away into question and answer session, please.
Yes. The first question is from Bashir Ahmad Sumali, who is from Mauritius and a Muslim. What can you say to a non-Ahmadi who does not share some of your fundamental beliefs but is in tune with the good work you are doing?
I can't think of any non-Ahmadi who does not find us share his fundamental beliefs, because the fundamental beliefs we have are belief in the Holy Quran and the belief in the word of the Holy Prophet and the belief that both will never be cancelled till the day of resurrection. And as such, all the fundamentals which originate from these two sources are fully shared by us. So I don't think this question is valid as far as that goes. Please.
The next questioner are Ben and Hanif Muhammad Ali. They are Mauritians. They asked...
Both have asked the same question together? Huh? Father and son. Okay.
There are two questions. Why are the Middle Eastern Arab countries not helping in the Kosovo conflict, as most of the victims are Muslim?
This question should be addressed to them, not to me. There is no reason why they shouldn't. They call themselves champions of Muslim cause, and here is the challenge for them. There you are with the Muslim cause, and they are abstaining from helping them as much as one would require them to do.
The next question is, how does the traditional Islamic faith, culture and belief keep pace with modernism, technological progress in the Western world?
Who has asked this question?
The same.
The same, right. This is a good question, of course, in the sense that Islam, if it's true, and as we know it is true, and Islam, if it is everlasting, as we know it is, should have answers to the most modern questions raised by science and technology and other scientific achievements of the age. And this is exactly what has been attempted by me repeatedly in my discourses, question and answer sessions, as well as in the book which has just been mentioned. So if you are truly interested in finding the answers to these questions, so that you are fully satisfied with the Holy Quran and its teachings to be, for all times, a book which can never be left behind in time. So you better have recourse to this book and study it, as best as you can. Thank you.
Mr. Johan Savage, who's 14. He asked two questions.
Yes.
Firstly, do you consider the laws to combat racism or sexism as adequate?
Which laws? You're talking of the British laws? Is it right?
Yes.
Well, they're trying to improve their laws, but they also find resistance from the other side. So it's a mutual conflict going on for so many times, and I hope they will succeed in achieving their objective, because it is a noble objective, but there is no end to this tug of war as far as I can see.
The second question is, how do you feel about the India-Pakistan conflict over Kashmir, and can it be resolved peacefully before nuclear weapons are used?
I think this question is not asked in the right forum. I am here to answer questions regarding the religious aspects of the world and the scientific aspects which are universal. I don't want to be involved in a struggle which is regional between two countries to which I belong. I belong to India as well as to Pakistan. So it will not be fair of me to pass my judgment in favor of one or the other. All I can advise is that they should keep justice above everything else. If they both stick to justice and truth, the problem can be resolved. But unfortunately, neither pays attention to being just in the absolute value of the justice and being truthful as they should be. In defending their causes, they both lie, which is not fair. So that is the only advice which I can render, and no more.
Mr. Robert Turnbull, who is a Muslim and married to a Mauritian Ahmadi.
Yes, please.
He asks, this question has been asked by a number of people today. Could Hazur please comment on whether genetically modified food products fall within halal guidelines?
Genetically modified food products are in a way helping the human society as far as their food resources are concerned. They are helping shortage of food everywhere in the world, and also in the Western society, in the Western countries. Genetically improvised food can produce more than ordinarily produced food. That is a good point of it. The intention is good, no doubt. But there are bad points as well, because genetically produced food loses some of its flavor and taste. And not only that, it can also create problems with the human's health, which are problems can be detected later on. Because experiment with the human economy, that is internal human economy, has to be very cautious. And just because they have developed a certain types of wheat and other plants or fruit plants which grow larger mass of fruit or vegetable is not the problem and is not all the problem. The problem is what will they do to the human economy inside? What will be their effect on the future generations of mankind? So I'm not very sure that this is an advisable and acceptable proposition to the solution. But at the moment I cannot suggest any other alternative solutions. Sorry.
Mr. Turnbull also asked a related question: what is your view on genetic modification of animal life? Example, Dolly the sheep.
Genetic modification of animal life is a very dangerous exercise. And according to the Holy Quran, this attempt on the part of man to interfere with the genetic signals within chromosomes, etc., can produce horrific effects on the mankind. And whether the experiments are carried with animals or on humans, it's the same thing. You know, to my knowledge, they do not have the full command over the outcome of these experiences. And the scientists involved in this task admitted in so many words. They think that a part of a chromosome can be attached to another part of the chromosome of the female, for instance, or from one animal's chromosome, if that is linked on to that part of the chromosome to another animal, the result would be what they foresee. But their experiments have told that the results were not what they foresaw. They were many a time most unpleasantly surprised. So this I am just quoting in favor of a Quranic prophecy that when mankind will try to change human or animal life genetically, this will be at the behest of Satan, and they will find it extremely dangerous game, which will ultimately turn the tables against humans at last.
The next question is from Mr. Derek Wareham, who is a Christian from England.
Yes, please.
He says, thank you for the opportunity to ask questions today, and ask two questions. One, I am told that your group has been persecuted. Do you draw a comparison between yourselves and the Jews, a chosen people with a special mission? If so, what is your mission?
We do not draw a comparison between us and the Jews, but we draw a comparison between us and the early Christians. And because the founder of the Ahmadiyya community claimed to be spiritually Messiah of the age, so that should have been the comparison, and that is the comparison. Thank you.
Question 2. Though I do not fully comprehend the great love of God or understand the death and resurrection of Jesus, I believe. This belief forms the basis of my life. Could you please comment?
I think that which you cannot understand, you should not believe in. Because then a partition will be created, inaccessible partition from which your rationality will not be able to jump over to the other side of your faith. With the result that the faith and rationality will go on falling apart from each other, gaining more distance. And that creates fanaticism. If you analyze fanaticism, religious fanaticism anywhere in the world, whether in the Muslim world or Christian world or Jewish world, the same would be the answer. Because they want to keep their faith alive and they cannot meet the modern challenges of sciences, etc. So to protect their faith against these challenges, they say faith is something and science is something else. While they are not two different things. Faith is a word, should be understood as word of God, and science should be understood to be the act of God. So the unity of God requires that both should agree with each other.
The next question is from Mr. Hatim D. Adams, who is British but originally from Kenya. Again, two questions. One, why do Muslims around the world not celebrate Eid on the same day?
What?
Why don't Muslims celebrate Eid on the same day?
It's not possible because the Eids to which you are referring are related to moons and not to sun. So because the moons vary from place to place and they do not follow the same dates everywhere, so the Eids have to be on different days. And perhaps this is the purpose, intended purpose of God, that all over the world the Eid should be celebrated on different days. Thank you.
Why do you call yourselves Ahmadi Muslims?
That is to express in brief, the differences between us and other Muslims. And they themselves also call themselves this, for instance, Wahhabi Muslim or Shia Muslim and this Muslim and that Muslim. That does not mean that they don't consider themselves to be Muslims. They do believe that they are Muslims, but in short, to express their stamp of beliefs, they use these terms. So exactly in the same way, Ahmadis use the word Ahmadiyya so that people can understand the message of Ahmadiyya. Immediately they know this is the type of their belief which they hold.
Mr. Shaukat Jingu, who is a Mauritian, he says, in the Sunday Times today, there was a story mentioning a 5-year-old Muslim boy in the Ivory Coast who suddenly started reciting the Quran by heart. People believe he may be the Messiah of the new millennium. What is Hazur's opinion?
First of all the prophecies of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam regarding the appearance of Messiah are understood differently by different people. We consider them to be a metaphoric message, and Messiah would not descend from the heaven directly. The other Muslims believe that the Messiah will be the same old Messiah who would descend from the heavens physically. Now, this boy is neither here nor there. Amazing how people make a fool of themselves in the hope of gaining in the hope of having some Messiah. They are creating these Messiahs and they are meaningless cults. They will go, this mood is created for a while and then this disappears. So I have already sent a challenge to this little Messiah that if he is ready to answer our questions on television anywhere in Africa or any other country, we are ready to help you. And then the world will be able to judge for itself whether you are the Messiah or not. Thank you.
Mr. Ghazi Yadali, who is a Mauritian Ahmadi.
Yes, please.
Astronomers have predicted that an asteroid may be on a collision course with the Earth in 2035. What do you think that the future holds for us in this respect?
I don't think this is going to happen. They've always been predicting these things, and many people even committed mass suicides, being afraid of hit by a meteor, etc. All this is false, because Islam has as yet not spread to the world to emerge as the most dominant religion. And this is a prophecy of the Holy Quran. It must be fulfilled. And if in the year 35 it happens, this prophecy will remain unfulfilled. So we better, I hope all of us live long enough, if not all, most of us live long enough to see that this prophecy is just an ordinary false prediction.
The next question is from Mr. Shabir Ahmad Gangu, who is 80 years old.
Where is Mr.? He has not made any claim, has he? He's twice as old than the modern Messiah of this, which was mentioned. Has he really asked a question?
Yes.
This small boy? Very good. I must appreciate his intelligence. Please read the question.
His question is, I would like to know if there are people living on other planets.
Yes, there are people living on other heavenly bodies, but those which are shown on television, they are not that people. Television only deals with fiction and not with facts. Thank you.
Mr. James Hilton, who is English Muslim.
Yes. James Hamilton.
Pardon?
Hamilton?
Hilton.
Hilton, I'm sorry. Yes.
Some people I have spoken to from other religions, for example the Christians and the Jews, believe that they have a monopoly on the afterlife. They think they will be the only ones to enter heaven. Where do we as Muslims stand on this subject? Can non-Muslims who are good people enter heaven?
The only one person who has monopoly over the hereafter is God. No one else has any monopoly. And the Holy Quran mentions this claim of the Jews and the Christians that they say they would be the only people who would go to heaven. But Allah knows best. So as far as the question of going to heaven ultimately is concerned, this is a matter which relates entirely to God. Because He knows the inside story of everybody's heart and his soul. And He alone is the best judge.
Mr. Naim, who is an English Ahmadi from Mauritius. Can Hazur comment on whether intelligence can be hereditary? Intelligence
can be
hereditary, passed from parents to child.
Hereditary, from fathers to sons, of course. It is most often confined to the parents' intelligence, and they give birth to children who share sometimes mother's intelligence, sometimes father's intelligence, sometimes a mixture of both intelligences. But intelligence itself is a very vast thing, and most people do not use a large part of the brain which Allah has granted them. So no one should find himself at disadvantage. If he is employing his brain to the full capacity, he can rise as a world genius. But unfortunately, most of the people let their brains go waste. Thank you.
The next question is from Mrs. Sauda Ndadaye, who is a Muslim from Burundi.
Where is she?
She's on the latest.
Oh, there. Yes. Yeah, oh, there. She's not there.
Oh, she was there, sorry. I do apologize. She asked that there are certain prayers where we ask for protection against Dajjal. Could Hazur tell us who is Dajjal and who will fight him?
There is a question which I have repeatedly answered from different angles. The fundamental introduction of Dajjal should be that he should be Antichrist, which means that the Christ of old stood for a religion which was his religion in which he believed, and the people of the latter days would contradict Jesus' Christianity, and those who do it will be Antichrist. So they may call themselves Christians. If they do, and they still oppose the fundamentals of Jesus' teaching, they should be rightly judged as Antichrist. Now that is why in the prophecies by the Holy Prophet we see mentioned the Antichrist to have a cross, and that cross is to be broken by the Messiah of the time. The Antichrist is mentioned to be a lover of pigs, and the Antichrist, the Christ of that age, will wage a war against the metaphorical aspect of pigs. That is a vast subject, what the pigs do and what his campaign will be against that, against that Antichrist. So these are just two examples which can be understood in depth, and then you will understand the Antichrist as well. Then politically it is mentioned that the Antichrist will rule the entire world. Now who are the people who rule the entire world today? Are they not Christians? They are Christians, of course, but their faith has gone astray under the influence of St. Paul. So they call themselves Christians, but at the same time they oppose the true Christianity of Jesus Christ. So these are different angles from which you can understand the nature of Antichrist and the nature of Antichrist and the nature of the Messiah who would come to dispel their spells.
The next question is from Josie Hyman, who is French.
Yes. Is it a girl's name or a
I think it's a lady.
man's name?
Josie, it's just come from the ladies' side.
Right.
Why do some Muslims believe Jesus is the prophet for Islam? Is her first question.
Because it is so mentioned in many prophecies of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that in the latter days the person who will appear in the name of Messiah or Mahdi would be in reality the true personality of Jesus Christ. So that is why we call him the Jesus of the time.
The second question is, why don't Christians believe in Prophet Muhammad?
What?
Why don't Christians believe in Prophet Muhammad, as Jesus said, if I don't go, another prophet will not come? As Jesus said, if I don't go, another prophet will not come, why is it that Christians do not believe in the Holy Prophet?
You see, where does Jesus say this? If I don't go, I don't see any reference to this. Has the reference been given?
No, but there is a reference from the Bible which is similar to this.
Where is that?
I don't have
Read
it.
it. Without a particular reference to Bible, that is the New Testament, I cannot answer.
We shall get the references. The next question is from Maryam Ellis, who is a Muslim and a West Indian. She is from the West Indies and a senior production officer. She asks,
Where is she?
Maryam Ellis.
Over there? Behind the curtain?
I think so. Do you foresee a third world war as a result of the war in Kosovo? And she goes on to say, some schools of thought are now advising their followers to store dried food for an impending catastrophe starting in September.
It's all bogus, meaningless. They'll see that September is not very far from here, and they'll see that that catastrophe does not occur in September. And if it does, then their saving of food will not be of any avail to them, because the atomic radiation will destroy everything.
Mr. Rashid Savage, who's an Ahmadi Muslim.
Please.
What do you consider to be the most important issue facing mankind today?
Justice. If the mankind is brought back to real belief in absolute justice, then the entire world will be filled with peace. And if they are truly dedicated to justice, only then they can judge truth from falsehood. So either way, from the religious point of view or political point of view, justice is the most important thing.
Mr. Umar Abdallah, who is from Somalia.
Yes, please.
Two questions. The first question is, can a Muslim request nikah with a woman who has become pregnant before the nikah? He had all along intended to marry her. What would be the status of the nikah and the status of the child?
The status of the child, whether is so-called illicit result of illicit relations, will always remain to be that which has been mentioned in the Quran, that every child is born in the nature of God. That is nature created by Allah. And every child is innocent. So as far as the status of the child is concerned, he will most certainly be an innocent child. He will not be punished by the sins of his parents. As far as the marriage is concerned, this question should be answered in relation to the customs of the place, of the country in which this thing happens, what you're mentioning. You see, in Africa, I discovered that it has been a long practice that when husband and boy and a girl decide to marry each other, they have conjugal relations before the nikah, and then nikah is performed afterwards. Now this custom is wrong. I do not approve of this custom, but as a result of this, the nikah must be performed, because this nikah will give a legality in the eyes of others to the child born.
His second question is, after divorce, if a woman wants to rejoin her former husband, can she do that? Can a divorced woman go back to her ex-husband?
Yes, she's most welcome to go back.
Mr. Azad Hossein Bakas.
Is he from Mauritius?
He's Mauritian, yes. He was born here.
They pronounce the word Baksh as Bakas.
Yes.
And I have repeatedly told them, if he happens to be an Ahmadi, he should have known that they should return to the correct pronunciation of the word Bakas, which is Baksh. Allah's Baksh is, which Allah Baksh means Allah has given that child to somebody. So Baksh means God has granted that child to his parents. So this is a very good word with a good meaning. Why don't you stick to this pronunciation? Please.
Azad Hossein Bash. With reference to portrait drawing, I have been told that Islam forbids us to do this, and as an artist, I would like further clarification. Also, if portraits are forbidden, why are photographs not treated in the same light?
You see, photograph is an exact image, or as near an exact image as possible of the person. But when you draw a person's figures, then your imagination has a great part to play in it. If the person happens to be a religious leader, then the aura around it would be created by your own mind, which may not exist there at all. So it will mislead people ultimately to begin to sort of worship him. Not worship him directly, but to relate him to the powers of God in a sense that humans should not be related. So that is why every such art which may ultimately lead to idolatry is strictly forbidden. But I have never seen any hadith which prohibits the drawing of nature, because when you draw nature, it's not possible for you to create imaginary gods through drawing of nature. You try to be as realistic as you are, as you should be. So there is no hadith, to my knowledge, which forbids drawing of natural scenes, for instance. The drawing that was known at that time was that of imaginary gods, and as such it was very strictly forbidden by Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Mr. Shaukat Jingur again. In the Sunni Jamaat and others, when someone dies, there is a custom for relatives and friends to gather and recite the Holy Quran and other qasidas during the first 40 days. Is there anything wrong with this custom? If not, why does our Jamaat don't do it?
Yes, there is something very wrong about this custom, because this custom did not prevail during the time of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, nor during the time of his Khulafa, nor during the time of the first few generations after the Khulafa. So if it were to be considered a good custom, it should have started from the source of goodness. It should not have been added later on.
Miss Farida Bagalu, who is a Mauritian Ahmadi.
Where is she? She's here somewhere? Okay.
Her question is about people who die in accidents. Is it their fate, or could it be interpreted as a punishment?
It is not a punishment. In some cases, it is a sort of shahadat as well, because Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam has counted such people among shuhada. That is, if they meet their end, for instance, by the mistake of some others, and die in such accidents, or even by their own mistakes, overpowered with sleep, etc., then Allah forgives them, and their death, although is untimely, but the remaining of their life is counted to be good by Allah. And in that sense, they earn the title of shahadat. It's not the same shahadat as that which stands prime in Islam, but it falls under the category of lower order of shahadat. Thank you.
Mr. Amit Hashia, who is an Albanian student.
Yes, please.
Why are so much trouble, trials and tribulation affecting the Muslims of Kosovo, Iran and Iraq?
If you study the history profoundly, you will find the answers somewhere during their past mistakes regarding their dedication to Islam. If they had been truly dedicated to Islam, I'm quite sure you will not find this problem, for instance, in Kosovo, Albania, etc., because in the past they were negligent in their duty to Islam and to obedience to God. And in a way, this crisis has brought them back to the realization that they are Muslims. So sometimes there are blessings in disguise. So although this disguise is horrible to look at, but ultimately if you analyze it, it still will turn out to be a blessing in the end.
I have a question from an Ahmadi Muslim from Mauritius, but they haven't given their name.
Why? If they are here, they should.
It is a question about interest.
They should raise their hands. If not, then don't read the question.
A question about interest.
No, don't read the question. If the person does not own it, none does.
The next questioner is Zahida from Mauritius, who is a Muslim.
Zahida or Zahida?
Zahida.
Oh, Zahida, yes.
I apologize. I am a nurse, and as part of my job, I assist surgeons to prepare operations. Some of these operations are terminations of pregnancy.
Yes.
I am not very happy to do this. Could you please give me your advice and opinion?
If you are not happy, try to find an alternative job. It's your problem. But as long as you have to do it, Islam is not against it. By way of performance of your duties to serve people in the matters of health, such things happen. And because there is no concept of sexuality being involved in this, that is to say, that does not appear in your mind at all. You do it with a sense of only your duty and no more. So do the operators. So no bad points can be attributed to this practice, but if possible, and if you do not feel happy with it, you can change your profession. You will change your not your profession only, but you can change your position in the same hospital or in some other hospital. You do not have to perform these things yourself.
Hazur, we have the name of the person who asked the previous question. Yeah. It was Mrs. Salima Sukhia, who is on the ladies' side.
Salima Sukhia.
That's why we didn't see her hand.
She's over there.
Yes.
Okay.
As Muslims, we are not allowed to use interest money except bank interest, which is used for publication of religious literature. My question is it allowed on a personal basis for someone to use this money to buy and give books for preaching to non-Muslims?
No. Interest does not belong to the person because it's forbidden in Islam. So instead of throwing it away, you should give it to a Jamaat to spend it in the cause of Islam, because all money, everything belongs to God. So there is no question of halal or haram in relation to the work of God. So that is why I insist that personally that person should not be permitted to use it even in service of Islam of his own choice, because that will be as if it belonged to him, that money belonged to him or her. It doesn't belong to him or her at all. Please.
Mr. Ahad Banu.
Ahad Banu. Yes, please.
3 questions, Hazur.
Yes.
Firstly, Hazur mentioned that it was wrong for actors to depict the Holy Prophet, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, for actors to depict the Holy Prophet, to play the part
to play the part of the Holy Prophet, yes, it is wrong.
Would this also apply to other prophets, as we know
yes,
they have...
to all prophets. Right.
Second question. A poet, I think it was Shakespeare, said, "If music be the food of love, then play on."
If music
be the food of love, then play on.
What sort of love did he mention?
I don't know.
It all depends on what love he has in mind.
Mr. Banu continues to ask, does music have a role to play in Islamic society? If not, what is the use of the undoubted talent and skill of those who create and those who play music?
You see, music does not require dependence on instruments. The true music is the harmony of soul. So as such, people who were given to music prior to Islam, after the appearance of Islam, were totally dedicated to the recitation of the Holy Quran in good voice. And they were so deeply influenced by the music of the Quran that it was not a sacrifice on their part to abandon the other music. It was a just natural urge with them. So the same can be said about people with this tendency today. If they rectify their musical tendencies to suit the music to their soul, then their talents would not be wasted. They would be even much better employed, inshallah.
His last question is on beggars. He says, the Holy Quran says, give to those who ask. Nowadays in London, there are many professional beggars, but there are also many who are in need, but it is difficult to distinguish between the two. Is there any benefit in giving to anyone who asks you when...
The benefit of doubt should be given to the beggar, not to yourself. If you cannot judge the right beggar from the wrong beggar, and you abstain from giving anything, then you acquire the benefit of doubt for yourself. If you don't know who is the right beggar from the wrong one, give to both. Because in the sight of Allah, the spirit with which you give your money will be accepted by Allah, because it will be no fault of yours if you give it to the wrong beggar. I remember when I was in London, sometimes there were people sitting with bowls before them, begging for something, and I had no idea what they were using it for. I gave some money to a beggar, and by the side of where he was sitting there was a pub. He immediately ran towards the pub. So I had no idea how he would employ that money. So that was no fault of mine. Please.
The next questioner is Ms. Elena Browning, who is a Muslim. She works as a care in the community. I think she's on the ladies' side.
Please.
Can people with mental illnesses expect to get help from praying namaz as salat? And she adds a comment, I have gained great help from my faith with mental and emotional problems.
This question is too general for me to answer. People with mental illnesses should be rightly advised after the analysis of the illness. And in every case, I think prayer can be helpful. Thank you.
This is the last question I have at the moment, Hazur. It's from Mr. Bashir Bagelu, who is from Mauritius, an Ahmadi.
Bashir Bagelu, yes, please.
On the 13th of August this year, there will be an eclipse of the sun. Could Hazur comment on the effect of this eclipse?
No, I can't. It is for the scientists to tell you what physical effect that eclipse will create. From the religious point of view, I don't see there can be any effect of that eclipse, because the eclipse which has been mentioned by Rasulullah Sallam as a sign of the truth of the Mahdi is not of the sun alone, but it is the eclipse of the sun to mention together with the eclipse of the moon, and both eclipses have been mentioned to have occurred during the month of Ramadan, and special dates of those eclipses has also been given. So this eclipse, as far as that goes, is just meaningless. Thank you. That's all? Now we still have about 8 minutes to go. If there are some more people who are interested in asking questions, they can send their questions like Mansoor Haidar is doing.
I have to apologize for the pronunciation. I think it's Auster?
Pan?
Auster.
Huh?
Auster. Her name is Auster. She is from Iceland.
From Iceland?
A Sunni Muslim.
Is it Ulster? How do you pronounce it? Ulster? Ulster. That's right.
I am a new Muslim, Sunni, and I am very happy to have reverted to Islam. However, now I must tell my family about this. I know they will not accept. How should I approach them? Please, can you guide me?
You see, wherever the preaching to others is mentioned in the Holy Quran, the word hikmah is given preference. Hikmah means with wisdom. So instead of calling them straight away to Islam, employ your wisdom so that you mention those things to them which are meaningful to them in the beginning. And gradually you draw them to your side. Sometimes it's like, constructing bridges across vast oceans or seas. First, they throw a very small string, and you do it, you know it. Yes. So gradually, it can pull large ropes as well. So use the same technique with your parents, please. Next, please.
From Mrs. Sauda Ndadai again. Were all prophets before Prophet Muhammad ﷺ Muslims?
Muslims? Yes. They were all Muslims, in the sense that they had completely submitted to the will of Allah. And peace ensued from them towards mankind. And that is the true meaning of the word Muslim. One who submits to the will of God and one who creates peace among his fellow human beings. He is a true Muslim. So as such, all the prophets should be called Muslims. But the technical name of Muslim was not employed regarding them. That occurred only when Rasulullah ﷺ appeared, because he stood as a symbol of the final, complete definition of the word Muslim. Right? Any other question?
This friend is writing a question.
Pardon?
This gentleman is writing a question.
Achha, okay, yes. Oh. Right. So very little time is left.
Yes.
We can call it off because no more questions left. Thank you very much for this very interesting session. But I think this meeting has told me the story which is not told by your reports. Mauritian Ahmadis living here are doing very little tabligh work in England. If they had done it, today I should have seen a very large number of Mauritian non-Ahmadi Muslims, Christians, etc., etc. But instead of them, I see mostly the Muslim Ahmadis. And the purpose of this session is not to collect Muslim Ahmadis. For them, I have a separate session of question and answers in French. And they can benefit from that. So in future, if you have to have this program, very useful program otherwise, to continue, you better put it in the right order. That is to say, tell every Mauritian Ahmadi here to start preaching to other Mauritians. So much so that they should become interested in learning more about Ahmadiyya. So when they have achieved this purpose, this hall would be full of so many newcomers who would like to inquire about Ahmadiyya from me directly myself. So that would serve the ultimate purpose of such sessions. Thank you. With that, I take leave of you. Allah bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.